Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present to you the agronomic performance and the effects of drying techniques on the grain quality of selected heirloom rice varieties in the famous Ifugao rice terraces. So yours truly, Mr. Nemerix Gerson, will be presenting this research in collaboration with the University of the Philippines, Open University, Province of Ifugao, Kanazawa University, and Japan International Cooperation Agency, and the institution I work with, Ifugao State University. So the setting of the research is here in Ifugao, and we know that Ifugao is the home of the heritage sites as it was inscribed in 1992 in the UNESCO Heritage Site in the only globally important agricultural heritage sites in the Philippines. So uh, it is a very special agricultural sites in the Philippines. Hence, it is the only GIA sites in the country. Okay, so the study um, research on the preliminary activities on what are those best performing heirloom rice entries to cultivate from the baseline and on site in the Ifugao rice terraces, since we know that the traditional rice varieties are very much important for us to conserve its genetic purity and its conservation for future purposes. For the second study, the agronomic performance of the selected heirloom rice varieties from the baseline data used in the preliminary study were evaluated through their agronomic performance from germination until harvesting. And the second study research on the different drying techniques applied on these promising heirloom rice varieties, basing from its performance on the grain quality in terms of sensory attributes and moisture and post-harvest quality attributes. Okay, so in the image alone, it shows there the steps and the different methods I applied in the research. So here are the objectives of the study. So first is to assess the agronomic performance of the selected heirloom rice varieties planted in the Ifugao rice terraces. This determines the growth and yield performance. Then this will undergo drying techniques. So the drying techniques applied here are the traditional drying techniques method in order for us to standardize what is the best traditional drying techniques that could be applied for the heirloom rice varieties. Hence, one of the post-harvest losses observed in rice production is during drying. And third, we determine the grain quality performance in terms of moisture content, cracking quality, milling recovery, and head rice yield performed under the laboratory. And lastly, we evaluated the sensory attributes of the different heirloom rice varieties treated with the different traditional drying techniques for us to obtain the water uptake ratio during cooking, the taste, the aroma, flavor, and the general acceptability. So the research learning experiences I obtained in this research is for me to collaborate with the different agencies like the LGU, the elders, and the NCIP for me to be given permission in using the traditional rice varieties and using the different traditional techniques from the permission of the elders. And one learning insights I acquired in this research is to collaborate also with farmers aside from implementing the scientific way of conducting an experimental research. Okay, so for the first study, I used the four traditional varieties as it was mentioned from the local government unit as the best thriving traditional varieties for its conservation. We have here the Imboo, the Hinglo, the Hagaga, and the Kamanga. Okay, so for the methods of the study, this is an experimental wherein in 9 plots measuring 3 by 3 meters, as this is the standard size of plots, were used in the study. Following the randomized complete block design, RCBD with 3 replications. Since these varieties are traditional, it took me almost 42 days from sowing before it can be transplanted. However, missing hills should be replanted immediately. For the second study, or the materials for the second study I've used, are the drying pavement, and then we have here also the tapapan, or that is the indigenous hanging area, and other materials like the smoking techniques or the drying techniques we employed by the uh, local farmers. These are mainly the traditional rice varieties. Okay, so for us to determine the moisture content, we used also the moisture tester in determining the moisture content of heirloom rice after drying. For the milling recovery, we used the mini rice miller, which is commonly applied for instructional purposes in the university. And climatic condition was gathered before the heirloom rice varieties through the data obtained from Pag-asa. Lastly, the cracking of the rice grains was counted manually. No? So here are the methodologies in order for us to quantify the different data uh, mentioned in the study. So first, after harvesting, we employ the drying techniques that include sun drying, air drying, um, smoke drying, and the combination of air dried and sun dried techniques. And then we'll undergo it to moisture analysis and milling, and now will be evaluated for the grain quality analysis through counting of the whole rice grain in order for us to determine the head rice yield, which determines the quality of the rice, either it is a whole grain or a cracked grain. Okay, after determining the cracking quality, this will now be evaluated through cooking for us to determine the water uptake ratio, and now a coding will be done for the evaluators to determine the sensory attributes of the heirloom rice that includes the aroma, the taste, the mouthfeel texture, and the general acceptability of the uh, techniques and varieties applied to the research. So for the affective sensory evaluation, we called on the diverse group that includes the farmers, students, and localities and community to taste the product. So they are untrained panels. For the affective sensory evaluation, this was done through an evaluation of a trained panel that includes the food tech experts. And then we recorded the results and compared the validity of the sensory attributes through the comparison of the affective and effective sensory evaluation before recording. Okay? So, before I'll end, let's protect our rice terraces because it contains the history and the importance of our heritage. Thank you very much.